I mean, we went in with, no matter how much the extreme right in India was screaming and shouting for us to stop the ceasefire and not let it happen and continue with the fight. But you knew what you had to achieve. You finish that and stop back, because you know there's always another day. Live to fight another day. That's something which is very critical in a battle scenario. I've learned that pretty hardcore as far as this is concerned. And one lesson from Op Sindoor was basically that when you look at, I agree with you that Israel could not kind of achieve quite a bit. But one thing it did achieve, and that is a regional, I won't say submission, but I can't really find another word for it, towards the might of Israel and America put together. Right?
It's the US might, it's not Israel's might.
Yeah. I mean, that's US. Israel is the extension, right? It's the 51st state.
Or maybe the other way around.
Yeah, fair enough. But one thing that was also achieved is air superiority over Iran.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
true.
is difficult to
Yeah.
kind of just, negate. It's not easy to just get in air defense weapons, switch it on, and start off with your air defense. And that's the same thing I'm saying for Pakistan as well. I think that was one thing that was achieved through this war, which probably was a very minute tactical objective, but that did get achieved. No question.
They did achieve air superiority over Iran. It looked like it was uncontested air
Yeah.
superiority, which is a huge achievement over a nation of Iran's magnitude and size. And the question we have to ask ourselves is what happens going forward? Because see, now there's a pause in the fighting, and now what happens is Iran realizes what its weaknesses are. I've even heard reports that Iran's air force has been decimated. Right,
Mm.
those ancient saber jets that they had or whatever. So the question
F-14s
is,
and F-5s, yeah. Mm.
yeah, so the question is now what happens, because see, Iran is a vital component of what the West calls the Russia China led axis, in which you also have North Korea. So Iran is has been supplying Russia with the Shahed drones, and they've been supplying Russia with other things as well. And Russia and China both, it is in their interest that Iran continues to exist and Iran remains strong in West Asia. So now the question is what happens going forward. If Iran falls, then China, the cheap supply of energy that China is getting from Iran, that stops, and Russia stops getting the whatever it's getting from Iran, and you need an ally like Iran in West Asia. So then going forward, it may be the case that Russia may be tempted to supply Iran with weaponry. I've already heard that some Sukhoi, some variant of the Sukhoi fighter jet is going to be sold to Iran,
They
and
cancel that actually. They cancel
they
that, and
cancel
now
that,
they
was
want
it?
to. Yeah, they want to get into the Chinese J-10Cs. So yeah,
I see. Okay,
because,
so I think so.
Chinese are
Iran
just.
will need something. So Iran is going to need something. It
Yeah.
cannot continue to exist in the state that it is right now with no credible air defenses. So I think there's going to be some development along these lines, possibly.
Let's move north. There's a vulnerability, another one, and I kind of put across this point very clearly, because when you look at the Americans, they talk about this rimland, heartland, and they've got that thing very clearly in their head.
Yeah,
And the next target to me in that, of course, can be South China Sea, but I also see another variant in the game of Iran, which is Azerbaijan. And if you know, recently there have been tensions between Iran and Azerbaijan. They found that Israeli drop tank in the Caspian Sea. So there's that tensions. Iran has given some conditions to Azerbaijan to kind of meet. Otherwise, there's going to be consequences. The Azeris are, fighting up with Iran, okay, but they're also fighting up with the Russians. And they've threatened the Russians that, oh, you get out from our region and this and that. So, it's a very weird thing. And it does seem like India took a very, very smart decision to go from the east of the Caspian as well, have an alternate for the INSTC from the east of the Caspian, because it sure does feel this sector is going to have trouble going forward. What do you think about the Azeri, Armenia, Iran, Turkey, that whole confusing sort of a affair there? Will there be some kachra? Open a second
yeah.
front for
So
Iran?
so the Caucasus region is almost as confusing as the Balkan region, almost, right? All these little nations with all these ancient blood feuds and the consequences and legacy of the Ottoman occupation and so much more. So on the one hand, we have Azerbaijan, this little nation that is to the northwest of Iran, and then we have Armenia, this extremely ancient culture civilization that in the past, even Azerbaijan was part of that, present day Azerbaijan. Now, the Azeris are Turkic people. They speak a Turkic related language. Um, and they who are Azerbaijan's allies? First of all, primarily we have Turkey. Turkey is Azerbaijan's primary ally. But secondly, we also have Israel that is supporting Azerbaijan, right? And who is supporting Azerbaijan's arch enemy? Uh, Armenia. It's India that's supporting Armenia. So we and Israel are on opposite sides when it comes to the Azerbaijan Armenia situation. Now, Azerbaijan is interesting from the Iran's perspective, because when you go to Western Iran, a significant percentage of the population is Azeri people, ethnic Azeris. If you look at Iran overall, we think of Iran historically, we've thought of Iran as Persia. But today, if you look at Iran, only 50% roughly of Iran's population is Persian, and the others are different ethnic minorities. So, a significant population, a percentage of the population in Western Iran is Azeri. And Israel's calculation is that if we cultivate Azerbaijan, then we could potentially tap into the Azeri population in Iran and have them potentially in the future, maybe in some day, rebel against the regime, or maybe act as our agents and provide intelligence and so on. So, it's a very good ploy that Israel is playing. And that's one thing. Secondly, Turkey has these big ambitions, these neo Ottoman ambitions. Mr. Erdogan sees himself as a future sultan, perhaps, despite his advancing years. And Turkey has this dream of creating a pan Turan corridor, which essentially connects Turkey with the Turkic nations of Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, not Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan,
Turkish,
Uzbekistan.
Turkey to Turkestan.
Turkey to Turkestan, yes, all the way to possibly East Turkestan in Chinese occupied territory. So to create this pan-Turan corridor, you would need to erase one nation from the map of the world, which would be Armenia, and that's why the project has been to do that. And the recent conflict in 2020 and all the troubles ever since between Armenia and Azerbaijan are a part of that project. And Azerbaijan came out on top in the 2020 conflict. Uh, and this is not good for Russia. Russia actually should be supporting Armenia. Armenia seems to have the sense that Russia has not supported us enough, and there are also allegations that some Armenian leaders and politicians are bought out by the West. Okay, allegations. I'm not saying it's true or not. I'm just saying it's been around. So there is this complicated situation over here. From our perspective, India's perspective, we support. Which are the nations we support? We support Armenia. We
Iran.
are selling them weapons. Yes, we support Cyprus. We support Greece. So it looks like we are creating a coalition of the nations that are aggrieved by Turkey. Uh, but Israel is kind of working with Turkey, and it's
Funny
kind
thing
of
is, Israel is on the
bolstering
other side.
Azerbaijan.
Israel is on the other side, and America is on this side with Russia.
It's complicated, super complicated. So even the US would not want Turkey to become that expansionist and create a pan-Turan corridor and have all of that. You need all the blocks to balance each other out, and you want the balance of power, geopolitical power, hard power, to remain the way it is. Now, Turkey is very important from America's perspective because it is squatting on two extremely important choke points: the Straits of Bosphorus and the Straits of the Dardanelles. And Turkey has been rent-seeking this geographical location ever since the Second World War ended. So Turkey has these ambitions. Armenia simply wants to keep on existing, and it's got all these wolves at its door. And Iran obviously will be aggrieved with Azerbaijan for the role that Azerbaijan is playing as a proxy of Israel. So there is that. So Iran, a Muslim nation, is working against another Muslim nation, Azerbaijan, and Iran is working with a Hindu nation to support a Christian nation. That's the complicated situation, that we have in a nutshell in this region. So the Caucasus region is super complicated. We have all these little ethnicities: the Dagestanis, the Chechens, the Georgians, the Azeris, the Armenians, the Russians, the Turkic people, and so much more. Very complicated, very, very complex history. But hopefully, this explains kind of what's happening there.
Yeah, and if you go north, you got the Mongols, the Tatars, and oh,